China calls the U.S. irresponsible over Donald Trump's tariffs and says it will push back on U.S. pressure.
美国不应以怨报德，更不能无端加税，这不是负责任的大国所为。
Japan is strengthening its defense amid fears the U.S. may take a less active role in the region's security.
A push for transgender rights here in Taiwan as activists call on the government to alter a policy that requires people to undergo surgery to change their gender markers on official documents.
Plus, we take a look at Taiwanese performance art that's been blurring gender roles for centuries. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Leslie Liao. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi says his country will carry on retaliating against U.S. tariffs. He made the comments at a rare press conference given on the sidelines of Beijing's key annual political meeting known as the Two Sessions. Louise Watt reports.
In his first few weeks in power, US President Donald Trump has upended US foreign policy, mending diplomatic ties with Moscow and stunning American allies with tariffs, not just on China, but on them too. And that was the background to the Chinese foreign minister's comments at a press conference on the sidelines of a major political gathering in Beijing. Wang Yi presented China as a reliable global power in a probable appeal to Europe and the global south. And he took aim at Washington, which is involved in tit-for-tat tariffs with Beijing.
大国应当承担国际义务，履行好大国担当，不能唯利是图，更不能恃强凌弱。
Wang said China would continue to counter pressure from the US, but also said there is space for cooperation. It's notable that Wang did not mention Donald Trump's name, and that's because despite its tough talk, Beijing is still hoping to negotiate a way out of the tariffs and lower tensions with Washington. Alex Chen and Louise Watt in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
The Defense Ministry is reporting the largest ever incursion of Chinese balloons into the area around Taiwan. The ministry says it spotted 11 Chinese balloons near Taiwan in the 24 hours before Friday morning. At least 2 of those balloons flew directly over Taiwan's airspace at an altitude over 6,000 meters. The ministry says it also monitored 5 Chinese aircraft and 6 naval vessels operating around Taiwan in the same period. Emergency measures are being used to aid a Taiwanese tour operator arrested in Hong Kong in February. The woman, surnamed Chen, was part of an official Hualien County delegation visiting the city for a travel expo. Taiwan's government body responsible for cross-strait affairs says she was arrested in connection with a 25-year-old money laundering case. They're questioning the timing of the arrest and calling for more explanation.
在香港目前已经没有我们陆委会的正式人员，都是香港的雇员啊，所以当然在服务类似的案件或处理类似案件的时候，确实会受到很多限制。
A formal court hearing for Chen's case is set for April. The government says Taiwan alone decides its defense budget. That's Defense Minister Wellington Koo's response to a Pentagon nominee who urged Taiwan to hike up its defense spending.
相关的武器装备的采购都是基于防卫作战的实际需要来进行采购的。我们在台美在进行这些相关的这些所需要筹购的武器方面，我从来没有感觉到说美方是故意要塞一些我们跟防卫作战实际不需要的武器哦，大家都是共同讨论。
U.S. President Donald Trump's pick for Pentagon Policy Chief Elbridge Colby said on Tuesday that Taiwan needs to spend 10% of its GDP on defense. He argues the increase would counter threats from China. Right now, Taiwan spends 2.5%, with President Lai Ching-te pushing for 3% by next year. Many analysts say spending 10% of GDP on defense is not realistic. Japan and the U.S. are wrapping up military drills in Okinawa, not far from Taiwan. It's not unusual for the two countries, which have long-standing defense ties. But as the U.S. begins pulling out some of its Marines, Japan is looking to fill gaps in the region's security. Jaime Okan reports.
These U.S. and Japanese Marines are practicing how to call out targets. For almost 3 weeks, islands in Japan's Okinawa prefecture have turned into mini battlefields, with dozens of military aircraft buzzing around the strategic area. Officials here say it's a reflection of tensions in the region.
我が国は戦後最も厳しい安全保障環境に直面し、国際秩序は深刻な挑戦を受けています。ロシアによるウクライナ侵略と同様の事態が発生する可能性は世界中いかなる場所においても否定できません。
These annual exercises are called Iron Fist, and they focus on how to strike targets and coordinate attacks on various islands in the Indo-Pacific. The drills here are also some of the closest to neighboring Taiwan. Just 600 kilometers away sits Kadena Air Base, the closest U.S. military base to Taiwan, and it's a vital hub for U.S. operations in Asia. If a crisis were to erupt in the Taiwan Strait, it would take fighter jets from there around 3 hours to move in. The exercises here are just one part of a renewed effort by Japan to boost its defense, with a potential conflict over Taiwan a big motivator.
Japan has committed to acquiring counter-strike capabilities, including Tomahawk missiles, and expanding its defense budget to 2% of GDP, aimed at strengthening deterrence against a Taiwan contingency.
But a war around Taiwan isn't the only thing on Japan's mind. China's increasingly aggressive moves in Asia and an unpredictable foreign policy from U.S. President Donald Trump is increasing anxiety over Japan's security.
Japan's perennially been worried about two things with regard to the US. One is abandonment, so that the US loses interest, strategic interest in Asia. And the other one is entrapment, so that Japan gets trapped in a US conflict in the region. And particularly, obviously, with the second Trump administration, that worry is being intensified.
The U.S. and Japan do have a mutual defense treaty, but there's growing concern about how active the U.S. will be in Asia's security. That's why these exercises are a chance for Japan to practice taking matters into its own hands. But while China causes a stir in the region, new partnerships between North Korea and Russia are also pushing Japan to stay alert.
Really high level, they're concerned about current Russia-North Korean cooperation of the nuclear development. So I think East Asia country policymakers should pay attention to the more multilateral discussion about arms control in the region.
More joint drills are scheduled for later this month, as Japan looks to take ownership, not just of its own defense, but in its role in helping prevent a regional conflict. Fu Hua Hong and Jaime Okan in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
European leaders have wrapped up a high-stakes summit aimed at strengthening defense for the European Union and Ukraine, just days after a tense showdown at the White House brought U.S. military aid to a standstill. As Chris Gorin reports, EU leaders have shown unity around support for Ukraine in its fight against Russia's invasion.
A warm European welcome for Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky as European leaders meet for a special summit on his country's defense. A stark contrast to his disastrous meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump in the White House last week.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
The contentious meeting followed by a pause in crucial U.S. military aid and intelligence support for Ukraine. Ukrainian officials calling it a threat to the global order.
Отже, цього достатньо, щоб зрозуміти, що вже не лише Росія та вісь намагається зруйнувати світовий порядок, а й Сполучені Штати Америки фактично остаточно його руйнують.
Europe is now stepping in to fill the gap with its Rearm Europe plan, with the potential to pour up to $860 billion into new defense spending.
There's a huge pressure on all member states to increase their defense spending and to have literally a surge in defense. And therefore the Rearm plan with the 5 elements was very much welcomed by all leaders.
French President Emmanuel Macron even suggesting his country's nuclear deterrent could be extended to EU allies.
Je connais bien le président Poutine, donc s'il réagit comme ça, c'est qu'il sait que j'ai dit vrai et que je sais qu'il peut trahir les accords qu'il signe et qu'il l'a déjà fait, que je suis là pour en témoigner.
Russia has pushed back against Europe while praising Donald Trump.
Мы видим, с одной стороны, меняющуюся риторику в сторону реализма со стороны Вашингтона. Конфронтационный курс Евросоюза в отношении России остается неизменным. Русофобия по-прежнему является главным смыслом существования, как мы видим.
While Zelensky on social media says he's now preparing to travel to Saudi Arabia to meet the Crown Prince and U.S. officials, possibly Trump himself, to work towards a peace deal. With global alliances shifting, Ukraine now finds the battle for diplomacy may be as dire as that on the front lines. Justin Wu and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
Not everyone is happy with TSMC's additional $100 billion investment plan in the U.S. Opposition lawmakers are demanding clarity on whether the move will hurt Taiwan's advantage in the sector.
我们的总预算还不到3兆。就是表示这一次增加的这个金额就已经超过了我们1年中央政府总预算的规模。台积电每年的投资啊，以未来这个4年，大概有60%的经费都是在美国，另外还有德国跟日本，扣掉之后，只有剩下25%是在台湾，这对台湾当然是有影响的。
Concerns have persisted even after President Lai Ching-te and TSMC's head C.C. Wei said Taiwan remains the chip giant's central location. Wei says his firm is accelerating plans to build 11 production lines in Taiwan this year. TSMC's unmatched leadership in the sector has previously caused other firms and governments to worry about overly depending on Taiwan for the critical tech. Transgender rights activists in Taiwan are protesting what they say are unconstitutional requirements for transgender people. Current laws say they must undergo surgery to change their gender marker on their IDs. Rick Lauert has more.
A new tactic from transgender rights activists in Taiwan, calling for the National Ombudsman to find out why the government here refuses to budge on what they say is an unconstitutional law. The requirement for transgender people who want to change their gender marker on official documents to undergo surgery.
会很多时候在用到身份证上性别的时候，会不经意的被出柜，然后让我过去的那个身份被很多人知道，然后我很难控制。
For activists, removing this rule is key to trans equality.
强制手术侵害人权，于法无据，立即撤销。
In Taiwan, a country known for its strong democracy and commitment to human rights, transgender rights are the next big challenge. Activists here say that when it comes to LGBTQ+ issues, the transgender community is being left behind. Taiwan was the first country in Asia to legalize same-sex marriage in 2019. And despite some promising signs, key transgender issues like the requirement to have surgery to change gender markers on documents have made little progress. Transgender Taiwanese have been taking the surgery issue to court, and together with LGBTQ+ rights activists, they've won 6 cases, but the government has not moved.
其实这也是我们完全不能理解的部分，甚至在法院开庭的过程中，法官都是直接指责内政部，认为内政部在这个情况下还不变更函释，其实是违反了这个宪政的原则，他们等于完全不理会司法院这边给出来的意见。
In a statement this week, Taiwan's Interior Ministry said it was still holding consultations on what it says is an issue that affects all of society. But transgender people here and their supporters are tired of bureaucracy. They say the current rules breach their fundamental human rights and must change. Andy Xue and Rick Lautz in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up, Taiwanese technology is inspiring California's post-wildfire rebuilding. Stay tuned.
In the face of adversity, the power of truth.
A roadmap for a just and open world, charted by the freest country in Asia.
Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
TaiwanPlus News, a voice of freedom in Asia.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. It's been almost 2 months since deadly wildfires ripped through thousands of homes in California. Communities there are still working to recover and rebuild their lives. To help them, the state is turning to technology with a digital tool inspired by Taiwan. Joyce Tseng reports.
In Southern California, recovery efforts still ongoing from January wildfires that killed at least 29 people, destroying over 16,000 buildings and homes. California Governor Gavin Newsom now using new technology to help the Golden State rebuild.
So the whole idea of this platform is to create additional opportunities for you to directly engage.
The platform Engaged California has been years in the making and aims to be a digital space where residents can get involved, share their needs, and help inform policy decisions. The tool's relevance and potential for impact highlighted by the wildfires.
What is really important, prioritized for these government entity, to be responsive to our residents' needs in an era where there's just lots of information, lots of confusion, and lots of stress. It's in a moment like that is the reason why this program was launched, to help.
Instead of an email, letter, or a phone call to officials that might not lead to action, residents can head to the website, a place for similar suggestions to gain strength in numbers and for different opinions to be discussed both online and in person to find a solution. It's a concept inspired by a similar tool from Taiwan. Here in Taiwan, citizen-led discussions on a digital platform like Engaged California has led to decisive government action in at least 20 cases. For instance, Taiwan's model has helped find consensus over controversial issues like how to regulate ride-sharing app Uber and how to tackle scam advertisements. The pioneer behind digital democracy here is Audrey Tang, the programmer turned Taiwan's first digital minister, now a cyber ambassador who helped set up California's program.
Letters to the president every day.
In an exclusive interview with TaiwanPlus, Tang says from Taiwan's experience, an online deliberation tool not only made policies more effective, but also made people more willing to engage.
When people in Taiwan, despite their political party differences, can nevertheless agree on things related to Uber, to the liability of online platform when it comes to fraudulent advertisements and many other things, it increases the connective tissue of the civil society. So that with the civic muscles, people do feel that it's not just about partisan politics, but also about the co-creation of policies.
In an era of information overload and countless online forums, trust between users and the platform's makers is invaluable. Given California's population is almost double that of Taiwan, that ups the challenge. But Tang is hopeful.
We're now seeing a shift from the vertical institutional trust to this horizontal, this crowd-based trust. Of course, this transition is never easy. We're slightly out of our comfort zone here, but I do think that this new form of trust will be more scalable and more resilient. From a Taiwan experience, it also made us anti-fragile against the polarization attacks.
Though optimistic about tech-driven solutions, Tang says it's also important to have some level of skepticism, a sentiment California's program makers also had, to ensure the tech works in favor of people and their true opinions.
Technology is absolutely critical to the platform, but we want to be very flexible. We want to not limit ourselves by any one particular choice in the technology. The other thing that's really critical about building the trust is that we show we're listening and that we take action.
In the face of catastrophe, it takes a village to bounce back. For California, they say they've built a town hall for the modern era, using tech to help find the solutions people want. Luffy Li, Patrick Chen, and Joyce Zhen for TaiwanPlus.
Taipower is being fined for failing to report a fire at a nuclear power plant immediately. The blaze broke out at the state-owned energy company's facility in southern Taiwan on Thursday morning. It was extinguished within half an hour with no damage to the plant's reactors. The Pingdong County government says it could fine Taipower up to $3,000 for not reporting the incident as soon as it happened. Taipower says it reported the incident within 2 hours as required. Hundreds of Chinese nationals freed from online scam centers in Myanmar have flown home via Thailand. Several flights carrying a total of 1,500 people are due to leave for China in the coming days as part of a larger repatriation effort. About 7,000 people have been stranded on the Thai-Myanmar border for several weeks after being pulled from cross-border scam operations in Myanmar. As gender roles are being debated around the world, a traditional Taiwanese opera offers a different perspective, one of fluidity and transformation. Ahead of International Women's Day, we see how women step into the roles of fearless warriors, while men master the grace of traditionally female roles. Cadence Quaranta takes us there.
It's a battle of wits and strength on stage, and it's also a challenge to strict gender roles. Spear in hand, this warrior looks like a heroic man, but under the makeup is a woman. In this operatic art form created in Taiwan, women have long played male roles. This warrior on stage is portrayed by Sun Shipei, one of the many women continuing the legacy of Taiwanese opera. For performers like Sun, their transformation begins long before stepping onto the stage.
其实我每次接到不同的角色的诠释的时候，我会先把性别给放下，然后针对这个角色人物的个性还有内在的一个状态，然后去做更多的探讨。演员呢，借由演出在戏台上，将自己的梦把它给演出来，然后呢，我带着观众一起来做梦。
Those dreams come to life when Sun and other female actors become male characters on stage. Those transformations also happen when male actors take on female roles. Taiwanese opera, or 歌仔戏, originated as a male-dominated art form. In the early days, all roles, including female characters, were performed by men. But over time, there was a dramatic shift. Today, it's mostly women who take the stage, with female performers embodying male lead roles. Legends like Yang Lihua have become national icons through their portrayal of emperors, warriors, and princes, leaving lasting impressions on audiences. Some have even made history, like Chen Yalan, who was the first woman to win Taiwan's most prestigious television award in a male category.
这是史上第一位女演员入围金钟奖 最佳戏剧男主角奖，并得奖获此殊荣。
Chen's historic win inspired countless performers. Jian Yulin has led a Taiwanese opera troupe in rural eastern Taiwan for nearly 2 decades. For Jian, Chen's victory was greater than just personal recognition. She says it represents the openness of Taiwanese society.
他并没有说你一定要是男生才能拿到男生的奖，我就觉得台湾这一点让我觉得太赞了。 因为他要的就是一个在舞台上演男生最棒、呈现最好的，他就可以来当视帝。
Taiwanese opera started informally. At first, people would gather around to listen to each other tell stories. Eventually, they set up stages to perform those stories in open spaces next to temples, which have been community hubs for Taiwanese people throughout history. Over the years, opera performances have continued to reflect the lives of everyday people, evolving with society's changing values.
那如果说像以女性反串男性来讲的话，第一个除了多元化之外，我们是一个非常民主的国家嘛，所以我觉得这样的文化以及这样的环境，孕育出这样的人，以及孕育出这样的传统文化出来，它是非常多面向性的东西。
所以有的人会觉得说，看男练或怎么练的，不是很奇怪吗？可是我会觉得现在的社会是很自然的事情。
Taiwanese opera has long embraced avant-garde themes, making space for theater groups like this one called Yixin Taiwanese Opera Troupe to experiment with daring same-sex love stories and modern storytelling.
我怎么样让整出戏去说服观众？因为戏曲是要反映人生嘛，我们是在演绎很多人不同的人生。
现在我们人生遇到的很多社会上的一些议题，我们都会把它融入在我们新编戏里面，所以让能够来看戏的观众会更有共鸣，也可以吸引更多年轻的观众进入到剧场，然后去知道说现在的歌仔戏跟以前的是不一样的。
Taiwanese opera is a living reflection of Taiwan's evolving society. As long as society continues to change, Taiwanese opera will continue to grow with it, reflecting social changes and inspiring new ways of thinking. Joseph Wu, Peachy Zhuang, Billy Wu, and Cadence Karanta for TaiwanPlus.
And thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Before we go, check out these dogs from Crufts, an international dog show held in the UK. I'm Leslie Liao. Take care and see you next time.